Welcome, everybody. It is episode 20. We've made it to 20.
Hey,
Yay! And happy Friday. So we're back with another edition of Talking Cloud. And as always, you're joined by myself and
and me, Travers.
there you go. Our intros
Right.
are getting
That's
better
right.
every time. Oh yeah, I didn't even introduce myself.
You did.
Uh,
You just
I said it's me, and yeah. Anyways,
of course.
welcome to the show, folks. Here we go. Let's jump right in and start with our regular movie segment. And I put a movie in here to actually remind myself this week because I
Oh,
forget. I watched Unfrosted. Have you heard of this?
I've not heard of this. What's this about?
So it's a Netflix
Kellogg's?
movie about Kellogg's and
Oh,
the invention of the Pop Tart. And it's
okay.
I don't even know if it's remotely based on what actually happened. I didn't do a lot of research. It's Jerry Seinfeld. It's got a ton of people in it, and it doesn't get great reviews,
Mm.
but I thought it was hilarious. Now I like
Oh
Jerry
yeah.
Seinfeld. Like I watched Seinfeld. I still watch Seinfeld. I think it's funny, and he does the Newman kind of thing at one point. I thought it was well worth the hour and a half. So if you're looking for something to stream, it's on Netflix. I thought it was pretty good.
Fans of the Seinfeld genre will enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's got a ton of people in it.
Oh, yeah, it's got like Hugh Grant in it.
Yeah, he plays Tony the Tiger. They're great. He's like he plays like
That's awesome.
he's like a British actor, well-known British actor who's stuck
Yeah.
playing Tony the Tiger and he's not super happy about it. Um, but yeah, I thought it was really funny. It's got there's two little kids in it and they
Yeah.
crack me up. They Jerry Seinfeld finds them. Actually, I'm not going to talk about it a lot. I don't want to give it away. But the two of them crack me up through the whole movie. They're like basically the market research people they use. It's really I thought it was a good movie. So it's worth a shot if you're looking for something to watch. How about you?
Yeah.
Anything from the
Try.
week?
Oh, this week was all Star Wars for me.
All Star
We
Wars.
did Yeah, we did a marathon of the prequels, and I went to go see our local theater was doing a showing of the first movie, A New Hope. So went to go see that on Saturday. So that was good.
It's nice.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think we finished all the Star Wars again. We sat down and sort of
mm,
did the same thing. Didn't go to the movie theater, but did it on like streaming, like Disney, right? And
awesome.
just kind of
Yeah.
did them in order. And we started doing the same thing with the Marvel universe, and
Oh, geez.
I think we kind of made it halfway through and then just lost interest, moved on to
Yeah,
something else. Yeah, yeah,
fair
very
enough.
good. Yeah, very good. All right, transition to the next segment. Eventually, I'll create little screens or something fancy. But let's talk about some interesting AWS news from the week. Let me see if I can get this to zoom a bit.
Yeah, a couple things this week.
Yeah, a couple interesting things. So the first one is another LLM that we can get access to in Bedrock. So this is Amazon Titan Text Premier. I didn't add it to our
Mm,
account. I thought about it, and then I just got
yeah,
doing other stuff and well, forgot about it until I looked at this and went, "Oh yeah, I should have added that." Kind of poked at it a bit, but it says here it's an advanced, high performance, cost effective LLM engineered to
mm,
deliver superior performance. Blah blah blah. So I guess it's just
right.
another LLM you have access to. I don't know what else to
Another
say about
option.
it, really. Right?
Yeah, I guess the thing that would be interesting is how it stacks up to the Cloud 3
Yeah,
models in terms of cost and performance on the benchmarks, right?
yeah. I didn't look at the pricing for this, so I'm not quite
Okay.
sure. Uh, I think it's interesting. They do call out here somewhere. I'm kind of quickly scanning through it. The new model offers optimized performance for key features like RAG on knowledge bases for Bedrock,
Mm,
function calling on agents for Bedrock, which is kind of two really important features. Like we're seeing them talk more and more about agents and knowledge bases and
right.
stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But there's another model you can try and test it out against the other models that you're already using. I'll give this a whirl over the weekend. I'll add it to the account, and because I've got a pretty decent workflow now for all the post
Mm,
processing that happens on the podcast and stuff. So I think I might use my little documented process to run it through and maybe try the Titan text model this time just to see what it does.
okay, I'm curious to see what you think and how it
Yeah,
compares.
yeah. I'll make a note for next week. We'll talk about it. So that's another
All right.
model that you have access to. This I was really excited about. I'm
Mm,
still really excited about it, but I'm a little less excited about it, and I'll tell you why in a second.
okay.
So, um, essentially, what the way I kind of thought of this is it's another example of Amazon adding an abstraction layer to something that could be potentially quite complicated, right? Remember a couple weeks
Mhm.
ago we had the folks from AWS, DeBorshi and Gerardo, and we
Yeah.
we talked about this idea of sort of getting under the covers and tinkering, or staying high level and just using sort of uh, convenience services, right? Where we abstract away a
Right.
lot of the complexity. That's what Bedrock
Kind of top
Studio kind
level.
of, yeah, sort of reminded me of. Um,
Oh, sure.
it's Amazon's attempt to sort of help you make your Gen AI apps and make them easier and quicker on the platform.
Yeah. Sometimes working with Bedrock feels a little plug and play almost, depending on what you're doing, right? Which is pretty useful if you're trying to set up something quickly. And I think
Yeah,
that's going to come up in one of the articles, spoiler alert, but yeah, this
yeah,
yeah, the studio thing is interesting.
yeah. So I was all excited about this. They did the preview, and I was like, great, I'm going to try it out. And I was foiled. I
Oh
was,
no.
yeah. So you need SSO integration, right? Which we have. We're using
Okay.
Identity
Yep.
Center. So it was funny. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I have Identity Center. Why isn't this working? Couldn't figure it out. I'm reading the documentation. I'm like, okay, I must be missing something here. Like, this is supposed to be
Right.
easy. Why can't I figure out step one? And it turns out that, first off, uh, in preview, as of right now, it's only supported in US East 1, Northern Virginia, and
Ah,
US
okay.
West something, Oregon. Your identity center, your SSO solution, must exist in one of those two regions.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
ours does not. Ours is in CA Central 1.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So then I was
Well,
like, okay, well, maybe I'll create another identity center in US East 1 just to try. Can't do
no.
that, right? Got to have a whole
You
new
need a whole new
organization.
org. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one because, last week, I think it was last week, we did a stream on building out Bedrock and knowledge bases with CloudFormation.
Right.
And I really want to just try this to see sort of like, with that, again, that layer of abstraction on top of complex stuff, how much easier it is for
Just
us to
how,
build
yeah.
out an app if you just wanted to try something really quickly.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. It's a shame. I mean, this is kind of their limited release
Yeah.
protocol, right? It goes out to US East 1 generally first. You see this sometimes. There's a few other services that do something similar. I
Yeah.
know you'll see it with CloudFront sometimes and Cognito.
Hmm.
It only likes US East 1, or at least
Yep.
until recently anyways.
Yep.
Um,
So
yeah,
totally,
it's about
totally
that
off
option.
topic. You
Mm,
just made me think of something when you said CloudFront. So here's a question for you, and I have a reason for this question.
mhm.
If you have CloudFront, okay,
Yes.
and you want to associate an AWS generated cert, so you're going to use ACM,
Okay.
can you generate a cert and use it with CloudFront outside of US East 1? Do you know?
The certs are regional, so you'd have to deploy it where you need it,
Yeah, I
right?
thought there
You can
was
create multiple certs,
yeah, I
but
thought there was some limitation that like CloudFront, and you made me think of this, and I don't know if this is correct
mm,
or not, but it's the way my brain's thinking of it is that CloudFront in particular, if you use, so it's a global service, right? But
yeah.
as far as I know, CloudFront is only able to see certs from US East 1. If you had a cert in
Yeah,
CA
it
Central 1, it's like you don't have a cert, right?
yeah, that is true. I
Yeah.
think I can't remember if there's any nuances with deploying into other regions. I'm pretty sure best practice is to set one up in US East
US
1
East
though
1.
for this.
So
No.
the reason I'm asking is I wrote the AWS security certification. I
Oh yeah.
recertified it on Monday or Tuesday night, whatever night it was. And I had a question about that, and I caught
Yeah.
my eye as I was reading it. I'm like, oh, is this right or not? I went with the you got to have it in US East one. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it was the right answer or not, but you made me think of it as you said. There are services with those sort of regional limitations in some
Yeah.
situations. Just caught my attention. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one because I really want to try it out. The other thing that I want to be very aware of is right here, right? There's no additional
Right.
costs for Bedrock Studio. Remember though,
However,
however,
yeah.
right? As we always say on this, before turning any of these things on, make sure you understand the cost model. And remember with Bedrock Studio, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's going to create uh, agents for you potentially, knowledge bases,
Yeah.
guardrails. You're going to access some foundational models depending on your configuration. All of those other things will incur fees as far as I know. So you want to make
Right.
sure you understand that, right? Just be careful. You don't want to get a big bill just because you thought something would be
Yep.
cool to try out.
Just keep track of your usage because you will
Yeah.
be charged for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Spend some time on the pricing page that I think you can find just by following Bedrock Studio page here. So just make sure
Yeah.
you don't want to get caught with something. And here's one you shared. Do you want to walk us through this one? This is the Amplify Gen 2.
Sure. Yeah, so they released Gen 2 of Amplify for general availability. And, it's the kind of abstracted app design service for TypeScript. It deploys auth for you. Uh, you can configure it with Figma for your front end, that kind of stuff, and all your API routes. So if you're interested in Gen 2 of that, it's available now. Yeah, there's a couple of extra features they added.
Nice.
Yep,
I
just
see
a
here
little
integration guides
informational.
for AI services, Bedrock, Translate,
Yeah.
Knowledge. I see it. I see a trend here.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Do we have anybody that used, like, I know we've done some public facing web apps for folks. Have we ever had anybody that's used Amplify, or have we always kind of gone a
We
different
did.
path? We did.
We had a POC with Amplify at one point.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I think it's pretty neat in the fact, again, just to use the same word that I used before, it I don't know if the word abstraction is the correct word to use here, but with Amplify being able to build out some of those supporting features, like you said, auth and databases and stuff for you, like Dynamo tables that can do as part of your application
Yeah.
configuration. There's some good value there so that you can remove some of that work from yourself and let Amplify build it for you based on your configuration.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you call this? Like batteries included kind of serverless deployment system, something like that.
I don't know if it's a fair comparison. Actually, let me rephrase that. It's not a fair comparison, but when we think about how some of these tools take care of the back end stuff for you, this reminds me a lot of Beanstalk.
Yeah, it's similar.
Similar idea. You basically give Beanstalk some configuration information, say this is what I kind of need, and it goes off and builds everything and then deploys the code for you. Kind of the same, but I think Amplify has far more capabilities, right?
Yeah, and it's focused on more of a serverless deployment, right?
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah. So those are the AWS interesting updates for the week. It's funny. I was scrolling through the list through the week, and I don't know. Nothing really I didn't have those moments where I was like, "Ooh, that definitely we've got to include that." That's weird. So
this week looked like a lot of Service X is now available in X region.
Yeah. So. There were a few of those. So here we go. Let's change gears and start talking about Gen AI here. Amazon released their sort of financial numbers, right, for the quarter, I guess. And obviously, it's a massive business, 100 billion plus at annualized run rate, and 85% of the global IT spend still remains on-prem. So we're early days still.
Interesting to hear, right? Because you would think it feels like everyone's on AWS or another cloud provider, but still there's a ton. Just the vast majority of IT is still in on-prem data centers.
Yeah. So lots of opportunity here, and sort of the gist of this article. I'm quickly catching up in my little cheat sheet here. Is the fact that Amazon believes that the adoption of Gen AI will increase the velocity of people ditching sort of their on-prem solutions and saying, hey, let's run this on a cloud provider. And, ideally based on the person who's talking, ideally you pick AWS to do that. But obviously there's other
Right.
platforms that you can run on as well. But I guess the idea here is that Gen AI, they're hoping that Gen AI, or they believe Gen AI will improve or increase the velocity of people moving from on-prem to cloud.
Yeah, I can see it. It kind of makes sense, right? If you have the gateway is kind of setting up some kind of reg system and agent access to agents and whatnot, and then once you're in the AWS cloud, then you might start migrating services over.
Yeah.
So,
Although we've got another article, and I can't remember where it is, that
mm,
sort of might throw a little bit of cold water on some of this stuff, but we'll
oh yeah,
get to that. There's second spoiler alert. Definitely an interesting read. I know this is all crystal ball gazing, but interesting nonetheless.
yeah.
I like this. Good old GoDaddy.
Ooh,
Okay.
the GoDaddy
The
venture forward.
GoDaddy, yeah. And you know what? 3,500 small business owners. They're defining for this micro businesses that have fewer than 10 people. So that's kind of
Okay,
what they were targeting here. I think there's
this is
lots of,
like it's an industry survey by GoDaddy then.
yeah.
Gen AI. Okay,
And you had to have the people who were surveyed for this have a domain name and a website on GoDaddy. So they're polling their own
gotcha.
customers here, right? But I thought there was some really interesting stuff on
Mm,
this. Let me scroll down, right? Small business, micro businesses, 50% have tried some type of Gen AI tool in the last few months, which I don't think is surprising to me. What do you think?
mm. No, I think ChatGPT kind of hit the zeitgeist, right? Like, everyone's kind of aware of what's going on with Gen AI. It's in the discourse. So the fact that half of people surveyed have at least tried it,
Yeah.
I don't think is super surprising.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that 50% have tried it and
Mm,
25% have tried it for their business. So,
right. Yeah.
the
People are still,
other chunk are just kind of fiddling around generating images and stuff like that, maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
Right. The other interesting sort of key highlight here is that 44% of the people who responded to the survey believe that using Gen AI in some way can help them compete with larger businesses,
Mm,
which I thought was kind of interesting. So, what
people,
else is
maybe
here?
people are feeling like it'll make them more agile,
Yeah.
more productive, that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
mindset.
So of the people that used it, 77% used it for content generation. Creating,
Right.
you can see over here, sort of they summarized it into a bullet point. I like how they were very specific to say they created it for first drafts, which is
Right.
important, right? You don't want to just um, you just don't want to say generate an article on X and post it, because
Just
as we
throw it
talk
up
about
there.
a
Yeah.
lot, sometimes that might not go the way that you had hoped. And then we've got about almost 50% of the people using this for marketing. We're by this definition, and I agree. We're a micro business. We're a small, and I
Yeah.
can tell you, like, I use this, and we've talked about it on the stream before. I use multiple Gen AI tools every day, all day, whether it's for outlines, whether it's for marketing. You and I
Mm,
met yesterday and I said, hey, I ran this through
sure.
ChatGPT in
Yeah.
this case, and it gave us some pretty incredible recommendations that we use to base a conversation off of
Yeah.
around strategy. I can see tons of value in this, right? Tons.
Especially if it's true, like if you're getting good results for kind of standard business evaluation tasks, like risk analysis, that kind of stuff. Yeah, and for marketing, I mean, if you're generating content, that's a huge time sink writing copies. So I
Yeah.
think that's a big use case people are picking it up for.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that we've started to experiment a little bit with, and it'll be
Mm,
interesting to see how it goes, is how do we take, and I think this falls into the content generation or content creation part. But although they do say first drafts of text or social media and stuff, one of the
right.
challenges is, like, how do we take long form content like what we do here on Fridays or on Twitch, right? When we do the technical stuff, how do we take that and
Mm,
find other ideas from it? And it's been really interesting over the last couple weeks as I've been running all of the transcripts, which we'll talk about transcripts in AI in a second here, but running
yes.
all of
Yeah.
this through different Gen AI tools and saying, hey, give us ideas on what we could create based off of the transcripts from this long form content. I think that's probably a huge area that smaller, well, companies of any size really could probably benefit from.
Oh, sure. For like meeting notes, that kind of thing as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So,
There's all sorts of neat insights in here. I won't go through them all, but I think
yeah,
this is good information, regardless of the size of the business. Just again, if you're not quite sure where to start, this might give you some inspiration on sort of how other people are using this and maybe point you in a direction. So I thought this was a
for
really
sure.
interesting article.
Yeah.
And then we've got another survey here. Lots and lots of surveys around Gen AI right now. This one's Gartner, and Gartner sort of looked here at where is it? They had 644 respondents, U.S., Germany, and UK, who have said they've
Mm,
deployed or are using some sort of Gen AI, okay, in their environment. And I
right.
made a couple notes on this one. Let's see here. I'm scrolling as I'm biding my time. Oh, okay. So out of all the AI solutions used by these
Yeah.
companies, Gen AI is by far the most widely used type of
Right.
AI solution. I guess I don't
I don't think
really
that's
not surprising, right?
no. I mean, if you think about it for a second, right? Gen AI is generally used at the moment for kind of general productivity tasks in office tasks, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
writing, generating idea, brainstorming, that kind of those kinds of general tasks that apply to every company, right? The narrower stuff, like anything you would have to do on SageMaker or training some kind of progression model, is going to be focused on a very narrow use case, right? So not everyone is going to be using those. So this doesn't surprise me. We
Yeah.
see it
And
everywhere.
yeah, and I think your comments there kind of align really well with the paragraph right here, and the fact that
Oh yeah,
34% of respondents are saying their primary method of using Gen AI is sort of embedded in another tool like Copilot or something like
yeah,
that. In Amazon land, that would be Amazon Q, one of the flavors of Amazon Q
right,
now, right? I think it's Q
right.
Developer. Um,
Yes.
actually, let's sidetrack for a second. Have you
Mm.
tried Q Developer yet?
No, but I'm thinking I'm going to set it up this afternoon and give it a whirl. Yeah.
I've tried it, and it feels like sort of agent based, and it feels sort of like
Mm.
remember we've talked quite a lot about having agents. We've talked about Devin and
Yep.
sort of how Devin can go off and do these tasks for you. I'd love
Yep.
your feedback on it once you've had a chance to try it, because I tried it a couple times earlier in the week, and you kind of give it a description of what it is you want to do, or point it at some code maybe you've written, and tell it kind of what you
Mm.
want it to do. Comes back with a whole list of tasks. And then you can just
Oh,
basically say, hey, work on this one, update the code based on your recommendation here. Much, much different than sort of the original implementation like Code Whisperer, where you would ask it questions and
right.
stuff. I know Code Whisperer would generate code for you, but this
Yeah.
Q developer approaches it feels like a much different way, much different approach. So
Mm.
I'd like to get your feedback on it when you have a chance.
Okay. So it's much more chat focused still, but
Yeah, yeah,
you can still do the substitutions. Okay. Yeah. I'll
yeah,
give it a try because I'm working on that one custom dev project for,
yeah.
well,
I think
for
it'd be
reporting.
interesting
So
to see how it works, right? What
yeah.
kind of feedback it gives you, and then you can see it starts dropping off very, very quickly. From
Right.
like a third of people are saying they're using it embedded in a tool. You see prompt
Yeah.
engineering, which we've talked about. You talked about fine tuning, so kind of drops off pretty quickly here on this. The other thing, the other really important part of this article is the biggest barrier to adoption is
Mm.
demonstrating value.
That's another thing we've talked about, right? How
Yeah,
do people actually go and use this technology?
yeah,
It's going to be pretty subtle, I think,
I think
as,
so. I
because,
think so.
yeah.
I don't know what else to say about this. Like, this isn't unique, I think, to Gen AI. This is this idea of
No.
trying to demonstrate value for new technology is always something that takes some time, right? People have to wrap their heads around it. You got to see
Oh,
what other
sure.
people
Yeah.
are doing before you can kind of decide how to adopt it. But 49% of the people who responded to the survey say that they're having a hard time demonstrating value, and that's why they're not adopting Gen AI tools. So
Mm.
kind of interesting.
Quite a few people are saying lack of talent and skills and lack of confidence are a big deal as well. Lack and
Yeah,
trust is there too, which
yeah,
fair
yeah,
enough. If you don't trust the company that you're
yeah,
using, then
yeah, yeah. I agree.
this is going to be another.
Yeah, it's going to be a big issue. And then I think we've got another article here on lack of talents
Mm.
and skills. So we'll talk about
Oh
that a
yeah.
little more. And then they define, an AI mature organization versus a non-mature organization, and how
Oh
if
sure.
you're not a mature AI mature organization, you can learn from these other companies. Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay, DeepMind. Here we go. Walk us through this one.
Oh yeah. This is the most interesting thing I've seen in a while, to be frank. So if you may be familiar with AlphaFold, which is a DeepMind model that was released a few years ago for protein folding. And it's been used in medical research, biotechnology research to kind of approximate how proteins might fold and interact for medical reasons, developing new medications, that kind of thing. AlphaFold 3 just came out and it's 50% better than the state of the art, which is crazy. So before you would have problems with hallucination still in AlphaFold 2 and be able to necessarily model accurately every time. This time it's better than the state of the art physics based simulators. So these are models that are trained, based on the laws of physics, uh, and run in simulation to kind of estimate the interaction of molecules. So this is crazy. This is huge. You can predict protein bindings on this thing, like bindings with antibodies, interactions with sugar, other molecules, and they made it available for free for
Yeah, I
researchers.
just rolled down a little bit and it says AlphaFold Server, a free and easy to use research tool. Wow.
Yeah, this is a huge deal. Um,
Okay, so stupid question.
yeah,
How do I
mhm.
run an AlphaFold server for free? Is like, could I literally put it on an EC2 instance if I wanted? Like, what
I
horsepower do
think
you
it's
need?
I think it's cloud based, so
Uh,
you get access
oh,
to
you get access. See, I'm like
like a
downloaded
console.
and running on a T2 micro.
Yeah, no, not quite. I don't think it'll quite handle it.
Yeah, it fits in
T2.
free tier. I
You might
could
need a
run
little
it for
more.
free.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
No, you might need a little more
a little more
horsepower.
horsepower. Yeah,
Um,
very
but
cool.
yeah, it there's the benchmark they use is called the Postbusters benchmark, and basically that's like it's a Python library. It's open source that they use to crawl the structure of a molecule and predict whether or evaluate the quality of the simulated model you've generated. Right? Does it match up with how we understand chemistry to work? Uh,
Wow.
and this thing is 50% better than the best traditional methods on
Yeah,
that benchmark.
yeah. Well,
And it uses diffusion techniques, which is interesting. So
explain
that's,
diffusion techniques a little bit for me.
so that's kind of the same idea as how you would generate an image or a video, right? You have I guess what you would call it is you have noise, right? Like a randomly generated image of noise, and that gets kind of distilled down through a series of transformers and rules, and evaluate until it becomes a predicted molecule that fits kind of what you're going for.
Yeah, impressive stuff, right? These are the articles these are the articles that we talk about every week that get me the most excited about the potential
Yeah.
of what this can do, right? Like the potential effects on people's quality of life. Um,
Mhm.
like these things are, if it pans out the way I think people are hoping, it's going to be massive, right? To be able to speed up drug research, get those drugs into the hands of the people that need them. Uh, Fantastic stuff.
This feels like a bit for if you're in biotechnology, you need to take a look at this because this feels like essentially I'm trying to come up with an equivalent technological leap, right? But the invention of electricity seems a little extreme. It feels big.
Feels All right, cool. That's
Yeah.
a good one. I'm going to skip over a couple articles because I think we have a couple other. Where
Hmm.
was it? This one here. I found this one very quickly. Or sorry, I was writing some notes before we started, and I was
Oh yeah.
googling something, and I came across this, and so I thought I'd throw it in here. But same idea. This is talking about an organization raising money based off of a Gen AI model that they've built for
Hmm.
cancer research. So you can see here it's
Okay.
basically helping cancer centers process the data at scale. And then they can also integrate it with health record systems. And what I thought was
Hmm.
kind of interesting down here is where is it now? It's a brief article. Oh, this part right here. You can use it to pre-screen patients, right, that have upcoming appointments and match them with clinical trials that may be
Hmm.
effective for what they're, you know, dealing with. And they're showing here that
Oh,
within
interesting.
minutes they're able to identify trials and identify patients that might benefit from being part of those clinical trials, right? To improve their
Wow.
lives and hopefully extend their lives. So I thought this was just caught my eye because I was reading the other one that you had put in there and I just Googled something and this popped up and I was like, wow, it's pretty impressive as well. Right.
Yeah,
It's
this is
not,
the kind of thing we're going to see enabled by this kind of technology, right?
yeah,
The thing with
very,
cancer is there's so many different variations and they're all like often it's genetically different and it's hard to you can't just treat cancer, right?
yeah,
So if you can screen for something promising,
yeah, pretty,
that's very cool.
pretty good stuff. Now we have two
Mm.
hacking article. Oh no, I'm getting confused. Let's talk about this one because we were actually
Okay.
talking about doing something like this, and I still want to do it. This is
Yeah.
from Werner Vogels, and basically, what they're talking about in this article is creating using Gen AI to create a note-taking app that can help basically keep you from not keep you, but maybe alleviate the process of taking notes, either, clicking away on your keyboard or quickly trying to jot them down
Oh,
in a
sure.
notebook in a meeting and stuff, and using Gen AI
Mm.
tools to then take the recordings from those meetings, run them through, and give you a transcription and even to-do lists and things like that. And what's
Mm.
really cool about this is they've released it as open source, so you can get the code from GitHub if you'd like to run it yourself.
That's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
just thinking how we've been playing around with some services for specifically this. So they'll record your meeting and
yeah,
pick out the takeaways and send you a text file with to-dos and action items.
yeah.
But
We've used some pretty interesting services over the last, what, 3 months maybe?
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I would be like, if I've built a whole SaaS product around note-taking, transcription, I
Yeah.
don't know, like, I don't know where that lands long term if people start building and opening things up, like, making them available open source. I I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm reluctant to grab this because in my head, I'm like, "No, no, no, no. This is cool. We've thought about this. We wanna build it ourselves. We're kind of doing it a little bit, um,
Mm.
ad hoc right now as we're kind of moving transcriptions into Bedrock and stuff like that manually just through the chat.
Yeah.
What do they call it? They don't call it the playground, do they? You know how you can just go into the
Uh,
chat and
yeah,
dump
I
some
think it
stuff
is.
into
It's the
it?
Gen AI
Gen AI playground?
playground, something like that.
Yeah. And even what we're seeing from that and then being able to systemize it a little bit, and it's
Mm.
kind of what they've done here. So I'm reluctant to look at
Yeah.
this because I want to use it as more of a learning opportunity to sit down and actually build some of this stuff ourselves to
Right.
more not to improve on this, but really to get some practical skills on how this might be used by organizations. Yeah, you can download this and
Oh,
install it.
sure.
That's fantastic, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a techie. I want to click away on the keyboard and see if I can figure it out.
Well, it's a great opportunity to kind of figure out how this type of system might work, right? So if you go away and build it, and then maybe later what we do is to come back and cross-reference the templates, the deployments, and see what's different.
Yeah,
Do we miss anything or
yeah,
make
yeah.
any improvements?
And the workflow it couldn't be simpler, right? So drop an
Yeah.
audio file in. It's all event driven. They've got if you wanted just to test this out and see how it works, CDK to deploy it. As we've said
Yep.
already, though, make sure you understand the pricing models before you
Right.
set this up, and away you go, just in case, right? So
Yeah. Don't
I
be
think,
surprised if you get a nasty shock after uploading
yeah,
gigabytes of audio
yeah,
to the
yeah.
bucket.
Yeah, I have a lot of audio from all the podcasts and all the training
Mm,
roadmaps and stuff that we do, all sitting there ready for when my brain sort of figures out how I want to pull all this together. Because same sort of thing, right? You and I had been talking about doing something like this. How do we do transcription and get sort of key takeaways, highlights, and stuff like that from
yeah.
everything? But I highlighted in the article here one of the things that really jumped out at me, and this I think is just a great sort of approach in general, is there's value in chipping away at everyday problems,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This goes back to, like, this has existed since the beginning of IT, just this idea of, if you're doing something every day, well, that's probably an opportunity to see if you can figure out how you don't have to do it by writing a little bit of code and automating it or
Sure.
something like that. So this is a really good article. It's definitely worth a read.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a read.
And this will have applications anywhere you have a meeting, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that
you know,
I wouldn't be
call
surprised if there'll be
centers.
1,000 of these solutions in the next 12 months.
Yeah, the secret sauce is going to be getting the audio files into it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be the thing. And you know what, to be honest, I don't even know how they're doing it here. It looks like, oh, just drop the audio
Just drag and
file
drop it
into it. Yeah. So it's a nice, easy way to get started.
for sure.
Yeah. So that's a cool article, worth a read. Um, I like this one. Workers are secretly using AI and not telling people that they're using AI, and they're afraid that AI is going to take their jobs and make them replaceable. So I wrote some notes on
Hmm.
this one. Where is it here? 75% of workers in the survey here admitted that they're using AI, but just over half of them don't admit it to anybody that they're using AI.
Interesting.
Yeah. They also said that more than 50% of the respondents are concerned that AI will take their job. And some of those that are concerned about losing their jobs are already looking for new jobs based off of their fear of AI.
Well, it's not an unfounded fear, I don't think.
I think so.
Depending on what the job is, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, these tools can't necessarily go off and do a ton of work by themselves. They still need prompting, and you have to tailor it to a use case, right? But it is kind of scary, the usefulness of when it works. It feels kind of magical, right?
Yeah.
For these Gen AI tools, but
Yeah. But the flip side of this article, though, is
Mm.
that first off, companies are looking for AI talent. So if
Right.
you
So if
have
you're,
those talents, you're
yeah,
you're
you're
in
more marketable.
demand. And they
Yeah.
even said in the article here somewhere that, okay, so you've got AI talent, like people who are able to, like, build models, train models. Like, you're talking about,
Machine learning engineers.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you've got some, I don't want to say skills, but you've got some deep technical knowledge there on how things work. But another point they made in this article is even users of AI, like the people
Yeah.
who are using AI in their jobs and afraid to tell people about it, those people are also in demand because they're the folks that are figuring out how prompt engineering works and how to,
Right.
ask questions in a certain way to get at least good starting information back. Like, those skills are also very important. And I think it goes back to the
Yeah.
article that we talked about from GoDaddy. Like,
Yeah.
playing around with this stuff is insanely valuable. Just the skills that you're going to get from the prompt engineering part and how to kind of work through a problem logically so the
Yeah.
LLM gives you valuable information back. That's a marketable skill. So I understand why people
Maybe.
are afraid, but you got to kind
Yeah.
of embrace it a little bit and prepare yourself as best as you can for what probably is going to be a pretty major shift in the way work is done.
Yeah. Maybe you should be asking for a raise.
Yeah. Instead of hiding it, make everybody know that you understand prompt engineering really well. And maybe
Yeah.
it can lead to some more cash in your pocket rather than worrying about losing your job. Right.
Maybe.
So, yeah. So I thought this was a good one. And then we've got one last one, which I'll let you explain. Oops, wrong way.
Oh,
This one,
sure.
this guy here, LLM jacking.
Yes.
Walk us through it.
So this is kind of interesting. There's so much value to be had from access to these large language models, right? For generating text, images, what have you, that they're now a target for hackers to get access to, right? So this was a team founded a hacking team found a vulnerability in Laravel deployments, right? So they leveraged that to get access to AWS credentials, and then they leveraged those credentials to get access to LLM models. So using AWS API keys, essentially, what you can do is if the keys are permissive enough, it gives you the keys to the kingdom, right? So you can access whatever you want in Bedrock or SageMaker or whatever, and rack up a huge bill. So if you're running Laravel, you might want to make sure you're up to date.
And you also want to make sure that you're not using access keys.
Yes,
And
that's
if you
another thing.
absolutely must use access keys for some crazy reason, right? Make sure they're not associated to an administrative level policy.
Yeah,
which we see all the time.
Make sure they're pared down to the only what you need, right? Least privilege. I'm not familiar with Laravel at all, so I don't really know the requirements.
It's a PHP framework, I think.
It's PHP. Yeah. It's a PHP framework for developing kind of workhorse websites.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never used it. I don't think it's a stretch to think that probably what happens along the way is you want to talk to an AWS service of some point and you just hard code those credentials somewhere, and those
maybe
credentials, bad stuff.
It might handle AWS deploys, right? Like it's within the realm of possibility that it spins up EC2 resources and
could be, yeah. I guess it's going to depend on what you're building up with PHP, I guess.
Yeah, again, not super familiar with Laravel.
No. The other thing so a question on this, like, is this kind of like Bitcoin mining, like in the fact that, people will get into an account in order to run really expensive resources to mine coins. And in this case, they're going to get into that account to run a lot of stuff through an LLM, because that LLM could be quite expensive depending on what you're pushing through it. Is that essentially the outcome of this, you think?
Pretty much. Like you're essentially stealing usage from whoever you're running this on, right? So you get free access, you're stealing access to these models, essentially. Instead of generating currency, you have to generate some other content that's useful to you first. You can generate images or whatever, right?
Whatever you're trying to do, yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I bet you there's a ton of other things like this that are going on that maybe haven't been published at this point, but like you mentioned, it's just an expensive tool to run. So if you can get into somebody's account and let them pay for it for a certain time period, I guess that's the outcome of this. So
heck, you might even see brokering access to illegally to these APIs, right? Like if you're selling access to this on the dark web, maybe, like, I can imagine that happening.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway from this is, if you're running Laravel, make sure it's patched,
updated.
And if your PHP application is talking to any AWS services, best practices, always use a role first and make sure that role is scoped down to only exactly what it needs and no more.
Right.
Good lessons right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that is the week. Do we have any sort of housekeeping items here before we call it a day?
Let me think. There's the webinar happening later this month.
Oh yeah, thank you.
For Gen AI.
Yeah. May 30th, we're doing the Gen AI intro to Gen AI. So yeah, that's you can catch that on LinkedIn. You can find a registration page there and everything. So we'll keep promoting that, and we'll make sure in the newsletter that comes out on Monday that I put a registration link in there as well, so everybody can find it if they're interested in attending. Anything else?
And you can find a lot of these articles in that newsletter as well, right?
Yeah. I'll make sure that I include the articles, at least in the show notes, that you'll be able to
show notes for sure
dig up for. Yeah. And there was something else that was in my head. Oh, so I mentioned in passing earlier on that last week, I think we did
Mm,
about an hour-long Twitch session on CloudFormation and AWS Bedrock knowledge bases and stuff like that.
right.
I may continue that stream tonight. I may pick it
Okay.
up on Monday. So keep an eye open for that as well. We'll continue to build that out. We ran into a few little problems last week with I can't remember what the issue was now, but we'll see if we can get over that hurdle and get the whole stack running.
From your
And
calendar.
Echo is telling me,
Please
Alexa,
Right.
stop. All right. So the Echo is telling me to go somewhere else. So enjoy your week, folks. We'll be back next Friday with
Yeah.
all of the AWS news and Gen AI stuff that piqued our interest. So we'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye for now.
Take care.